Welcome to the International Tax Post from Hong Kong. I'm Jeff VanderWolk, and I wanted to spend a minute or two today talking about carbon tax. This is some relatively rare blue sky here in Hong Kong. There's been an air pollution problem here for many years now, as there is in the rest of China. And of course, Hong Kong is part of China, but it has its own separate legal system, so it can make its own rules. Now, China has a very well-publicized pollution issue, and they've gone to great lengths to try to reassure the world community that they take it seriously, and they have passed some laws that make the likelihood in China that they will have great improvement in reducing emissions there. Nothing seems to be happening here in Hong Kong, which is unfortunate because there's a real air pollution problem here. You can see it on bad days. Fortunately, this is one of the better days. And Hong Kong needs to take more steps to deal with pollution. Now, one thing that I've proposed is a carbon tax for Hong Kong. This really should not be a difficult issue in Hong Kong, partly because of the economy here. There are no coal mines in Hong Kong, there are no oil refineries, there's no exports of fossil fuels, it's all imports. So therefore you can tax fossil fuels such as coal and natural gas and fuel oils that are coming in to be consumed in Hong Kong on the basis of their import price. It can be a simple import duty. And it could be very easily administered because there are only 3 utilities in Hong Kong supplying electricity and natural gas to all of the homes and businesses in Hong Kong. So they could pay the tax on importation, and they could pass on the cost of the tax to all of the consumers, being the residential households and the businesses in Hong Kong that get electric bills and gas bills. It would be painless, it would be easily administered, and you could provide appropriate relief for the low-income households, which of course would bear a higher percentage burden if they didn't get relief in some form from the government from this tax. Now, this has a double benefit if you do it in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong's tax base, the existing tax base in Hong Kong, is extremely narrow. It has a scheduler system. The only things that are taxed are business profits and salaries and rents from real property, but that's a minuscule amount that's taxed. There's no estate and gift tax, there's no sales tax, there's no tax on investment income. So, you need to broaden that base from a public finance perspective, and you need to find a way to do it that doesn't involve complexity and doesn't involve a lot of bureaucracy and paperwork, because Hong Kong's advantage as a business center is that it has simple taxation, low taxes, very little red tape. It's a great place to start a business and do business without a lot of headaches. And so therefore you don't want to complicate the tax system and create a lot of filing requirements. A carbon duty of the kind that I've just described earlier would be perfect for that, because there'd be no additional tax filing requirements, but you would be broadening the base in the largest way possible, and in a way that would not involve any pain on the part of the tax-paying public, but you'd be raising revenue, which you could then use to relieve tax burdens on more productive aspects of economic activity, or to fund clean technology, green improvements, etc. So it's really a win-win for Hong Kong if they were to impose such a carbon tax. And it could serve as a good example then for other energy-intensive megacities like Singapore and autonomous places like Beijing and Shanghai, which need to take local measures to reduce air pollution and also to stabilize their revenue and adopt more green incentives, green initiatives for the benefit of the community at large. Now, carbon tax will be an issue if it's imposed in some countries and not others, that perhaps needs harmonization among all countries, since global climate change doesn't recognize national borders. Unlike tax laws, which are a matter of national sovereignty, if you decide you have to have global concerted action against climate change, and one important aspect of that regulation is taxation, perhaps a carbon tax that's internationally harmonized will be the first true international tax that we've seen in the world, in world history so far. In the US and other countries that have much more complicated economies than Hong Kong's, green taxation is probably even more important, but is much more complicated, especially from a political perspective. In the US, there's legislation currently in Congress for cap and trade of emissions. That is difficult. If it were a carbon tax bill, that would be even more difficult just because the word tax is so politically loaded. However, countries such as France, now Ireland, have carbon tax proposals going to their legislatures, and they're likely to pass them. The Scandinavian countries have all passed a carbon tax in one form or another. British Columbia is another jurisdiction with a carbon tax. Now, as every country in the world needs to meet agreed emission standards, it's going to be important to find funding to invest in green technology and cleaner ways of using and producing energy. So green taxation and the study of green taxation will become increasingly important as we go along. And of course, China now is the world's largest emitter of CO2 and other harmful emissions, will have to take the lead in all forms of dealing with the issue, including how to fund it and how to impose tax in a way that makes sense and provides the appropriate incentives and disincentives on all sectors of the economy. I'm Jeff VanderWolk from the beautiful campus of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Thanks for watching.